Hey, mama.
Taking my sight, taking my speech, taking my hair, taking my arms, taking my legs, taking my soul, let me with life in hell.
Welcome to the next edition of the Simply Youth Ministry podcast. This feast for the ears is not for the mentally weak nor the faint of heart. Be warned and stop listening now. Is your soul that thirsty deer? Is your heart that pack of hungry wolves? With reckless abandon do you pursue God's kingdom? Prove to me your motives are pure. Is authenticity your friend? Is integrity your brother? Who then is your pride? Do you know the truth? Do you tell the truth? Not for the mentally weak, not for the faint of heart. Prove to yourself. How do you know you're for real?
Best intro.
Doesn't get any more ridiculous than that.
Unbelievable.
Oh, hey,
Are you
everybody.
thirsty like a deer?
I don't know what's better, the intro or the look on Matt's face.
That he loved it so
And
much.
he's digging
Yeah.
the whole time.
Hey,
my
everybody,
gosh.
this is podcast number 48.
40, yeah, bro.
Ish, 8
Somewhere
or 9
there.
or 7.
Yeah.
We're not 50 because 50 is special.
50 is going to be an amazing
counting
show.
down.
Gonna
to the
be
big
special.
show.
Hey, and this is Doug Fields with Matt and Josh, and 2 weeks
There
in a
you go.
row,
Wow.
we have Jana Sardi.
Good day.
I was telling Jana earlier that Tori, my daughter, listens to the podcast, and she was doing homework, and she had the podcast on the couch in our family room. I was probably 30 to 40 feet away in playing pool with Cody.
Yeah.
And I could hear Jana's cackle, and
So
that is.
Yeah, want to apologize in advance
It
for
was
what
classic.
you may or may not
It
hear.
was classic Jana, and Jana did a great job. Jana's leaving to Australia on
Yes.
Monday for like 3 months, having a baby or something like that.
Another baby.
And this is the big deal because now today, if you're watching the video podcast, you can see Jana's face. Where last time you could see the back of her head.
So
So this
that
is
way
what
we
Jana
were
looks like.
rearranged.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're having another baby?
No, last.
Jana's pregnant, everybody.
It just seems
No.
seems like how many years have we worked together, Jana? A lot of years.
Yeah.
I'm just
Like
always
7 or
teasing her
9.
that she's
9.
maternity leave, going to Australia. She's married to an Aussie
Yeah, that's the
at
first mistake.
sardidesign.com.
Yes.
Ooh.
Look at that plug. Please
That's
go there and help pay for their trip.
We're raising money.
Great resources. Start.com. Done.
Anyway, so Jana's going to be gone for a little bit, and
Yes.
we need to get Jake in here. We get Natalie back. We're all. Well, I'm going to Mexico.
I was gonna say, you're gonna be gone
next
for a week, too.
Spring break.
Yeah, so we'll have to do our first show without you, which will be crazy.
Yeah.
Now, last year, because the
You know
show
why
is a
you
year
couldn't
old,
do a show without me?
there's no way.
Because nobody would prep.
Nobody prep. We just sit here and talk.
But Gil, nice job on the new intro. Now,
Thank you.
I could tell by your voice because you were reading that. Was that like out of a journal?
You know what? I did it a couple times. I did. Oh, I totally was driving. 3 days ago, I'm
Yeah.
driving around,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I'll go, oh my gosh, this would be the greatest. So I start scribbling some lines, almost getting a car accident, of course. And I'll go, this is going to be great. So I wrote it down last night and then recorded it, but I really needed to do it with somebody else so they could tell me, no, that sucked, or you should say that again, or whatever.
Oh.
So
There you go.
yeah,
Wow.
I kind of read it, kind of didn't. And
But I know that when you and I met on Tuesday to talk about your Easter message, you were so excited then.
What did I say? I said, I'm so excited for the intro.
I gotta do it for the
Oh, that's
podcast.
great.
I said, I'm so excited. It gives me chills to think about it.
Well, it's a highlight. It is.
So
What's Matt going to
lame.
do?
It's awesome.
Hey, are you heard well? Because your mic looks like it's.
I can, yeah, because I'm way up.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I'm way up.
All right. Hey, let's jump into some of this stuff. We got an email from Kevin Hauser, First Baptist Church in Miracosta. Matt's swimming instructional video.
Oh, yes.
Pure gem.
We had fun with
Oh,
that.
just
And
one gem, huh?
Did we?
One
Say
gem
sev-
out of 5 gems.
Did
I
we put
would
it
say
on the
several
website,
gems.
or what was?
We
it
put it on
just
the
for
website. It's
podcast?
only up for a couple more days. It's like an exclusive little window, and then it's gone forever.
Okay.
It goes back into the lost category
Okay.
of videos.
It says, P.S. Coin slots are for drink machines, so unless you're going to poop out a Gatorade, please keep the pants up.
Oh, man.
Coin slots.
Was there a little crackage
There
on
was
there?
a
I can't
tiny bit of
remember.
crack that I remember very faintly.
Just tiny, I'm sure.
and there were other. I'm not even going to finish that.
All
Look,
right.
new question. Blocked it.
Oh, that was good.
This is from Tom
Like a bear
Weston,
grabbing
volunteer
salmon.
youth coordinator, Christ United Methodist Church, Sellingsgrove.
Volunteer. Awesome.
Oh, then he says, P.S. Name of my town is pronounced Selinsgrove,
Oh, that's
not
good.
Selinsgrove.
All right.
There you go.
There.
I'm keeping the headphones
Tommy,
on, by the way, because
I
I'm gonna
like
try
mine,
and
too.
I'm gonna try and be mixing the audio since Nadim's not here.
Nadim's not
Yeah.
here. Andy's not here.
Because it's Good Friday. Everybody's off. What are we doing here, actually?
Yeah, at early in the morning.
Well, Jana's going to Australia for 6
Oh,
months.
exactly.
That's
So,
right.
If
You
you,
know
want
what?
to
Could we
show,
Skype her in?
Yes,
we could.
totally.
Really?
Yeah.
Would
We
it,
should Skype her in.
would it
That's a
sound good?
fantastic idea.
Oh,
If-
yeah.
If we bought
If-
her a headset mic, which would be awesome.
Should we send her with a headset?
I
mic?
agree. $20 at Walmart. Get ready, go.
Yeah,
Seriously,
it's
that
gonna
would
be like
so
midnight
fun.
my time. And
Perfect.
even better.
You'll be just
Perfect.
getting going,
The squawk will be from across
Muted.
the-
and it'll be on Skype. So
and
we,
you'll hear me loud
Well,
and clear.
Tim says this. I was at the gym the other day listening to episode 47, which means this is 40.
this is 48. All right.
At the
Somebody's
36-minute mark. You know what we ought to do? We ought to have a thing up there that just reminds us on the whiteboard. Like this
What
is-
happened last week?
No, just episode number.
Oh.
So
Okay.
this is
All
48.
right. I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
At about the 36-minute mark, you're talking about people using other people's bits. Jana said she didn't have to add humor as she can add wisdom. All of a sudden, Matt laughs or screeches really loud, and Josh comments, somebody just drove off the road. Well, I didn't drive off the road, but I almost fell off the treadmill.
That's funny. Almost doesn't really count though. Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to go for it all the way if you're going to go.
I was on a treadmill once and I turned to the right to talk to somebody. I'm not lying, Steve Rudenbar, and which is great to see the two of
the
us
two of you.
Oh,
at
working
the
out.
gym.
And so I turn over to the right. I'm talking to him about something, and of course, like I can only walk where I'm looking, and
So you were
so
walking, you weren't running on the treadmill?
I might have been running. This was a couple years ago.
Might have been.
Well, it was
Probably not.
like 7 years ago, so I could have been running, but it doesn't matter because the point is that I stepped off the treadmill and I hit the ground so hard, I got a bloody lip. And Steve's like, "We're done. Let's go to the sauna."
Did you hear about the
You got a
lady?
bloody lip?
Oh yeah, like a little.
I really wasn't paying that much attention.
Did you
'cause
hear
I was-
about
The lady.
The
It's
lady
okay.
who was wearing her iPod headphones didn't know that the treadmill was on.
Wait, somebody told us this
Yeah, I
story.
heard this story. It wasn't on the show.
She
was
didn't
it?
know it was
No, it
on.
was-
Okay, so
Us three.
you couldn't see it. You couldn't see it going, and she had her headphones on, so she couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
So she gets on a treadmill while it's going, and then
on.
it took her down.
Yeah, you gotta not be retarded. I mean, I was, and I
Yeah.
paid for it.
You would know.
Yeah.
Can we
I'd
say
rather you
retarded?
say not that word.
Oh,
Rather you say not
mentally
that word.
Not the
handicapped.
word.
I'd rather you say not that word.
I won't say not word.
Mentally handicapped. Mentally handicapped.
Yeah,
Just don't.
yeah.
All
Hurry,
right.
quick question.
No
go. Ready,
question,
go.
no name, but this is a great
Oh,
youth
no
pastor
name.
No
question.
name. Ooh.
And it's not the type of question that doesn't need a name. I just think the way that Josh sent me the emails.
I tried to protect the innocent when I sent the emails.
Well,
on
you
last night.
protected pretty much everybody.
So no one's gonna
None
know.
of
We don't know who they're from.
Well, we don't have Natalie to ring the
Yeah.
bell anymore.
Go ahead.
So
Well, actually,
so
Josh just made
Prep
them all
the
up.
show,
I'm
Josh.
sure this is Bob from Effingham.
I've been wondering about this. I just type whatever I want in.
Dear Doug, what do you do with all the graduation announcements that you receive from seniors in your ministry regarding gifts? Do you give them a gift from the church, or do you personally give gifts to each student?
I
Oh,
like
that's
that.
a great question.
I like very, very practical.
Yeah, it's a pastor. That you can tell that's a pastor's
is.
heart,
Yep.
wanting to care.
I don't even give my friends gifts.
That's
Right,
true.
Jan? Have I ever given you a
No.
gift? And you're like my best friend in the world. I just don't give gifts.
I've got a couple letters from you. I'm not
Well,
sure.
letters. I'll write
Isn't
letters
your
sometimes.
presence? Isn't your presence a present though?
Depends on
That's-
which day.
I think so.
Yeah, exactly, guys. Here's my gift.
You know,
I'm
it's
here.
interesting you bring that up.
So right now, this is a gift.
This is like
Yeah.
this is like Christmas morning.
I feel like it's a gift.
Thank you. Just unwrap me.
You know what? Even, I noticed that I could. This jacket
It's got a little breathing
A
patch.
little breathing deal. This
Ooh.
thing is.
That's how it goes on and off.
If you get a little sweaty during the show,
Yeah, this is like if once I turn the corner at first base, I'm on second, I'm a little hot. I just zip it up a little bit and I'm ready to go.
So that's
right,
when you
so
jumped on the
Anyway, to this
bandwagon.
anonymous youth
Like-
worker.
Oh gosh.
It's a very
You
sensitive
can't call
question
me
that he
a
asked.
bandwagoner for the Dodgers. That's the
Totally.
worst.
Dodgers are 2-1. Angels
I started liking the Dodgers when they sucked, like 5 years
2-1.
ago.
Did the Angels lose last
6
night?
years
Yeah,
ago.
pretty
They're
bad.
3-1. They swept Texas. They were 3-0.
They
Oh,
did
you're
sweep
right.
Texas.
Yeah, they lost last
Yeah,
night.
Josh,
Oakland.
don't give sports scores.
Hey,
It dates the show, and then
Okay.
you know,
Man, they just
you-
won the World
you
Series.
really don't even know.
there now we really
That's
dated
the
the show.
biggest thing is you really don't know.
All right.
Anyway, here's the
Dodgers
deal, right?
played
Wait, you didn't know
ones
they
tonight.
lost last night? Maybe they didn't. Maybe I don't know that.
That-
At Sports Center?
That's obvious that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
on
they
sports.
lost last night.
Okay.
So they're
What were we
3-1.
talking about? Oh, gifts.
Gifts.
Oh,
Do
graduation.
you give them gifts?
There we go.
Okay,
And
let
where
me-
does it come from?
Let me give my little spiel, and then you guys chime in if you want.
Spiel Glocken.
We give in the ministry. We do a little seniors deal, and we get gifts for all the seniors, and they give them from the church. I don't do them personally, just because I don't want to. I mean, those that I'm really, really close with, I will probably, show up at their graduation, make an appearance.
Yeah.
Well, we have done in the past. You remember the days, Matt, where we'd hit about 6 graduations, and we would drive to the front of, let's say, for example, Mission Viejo's graduating at 3. We get there at 2:30. We waved all the guys as they come in. Then we leave. We go to another graduation. We get there in the middle. We make sure we're seen. Then we get to another one as they're leaving. You guys,
Yeah, the reception
So
on the way
we-
back. Go to an
Yeah,
open
we
house.
were
You're all
just-
done.
We're just making brief appearances. But what was that noise right there?
Tony? That was not me. I normally would not have a problem farting. I did not fart.
Wasn't
Tony?
that-
No.
The other day, her
Is
stomach
that you?
growled in a no.
That was
Her stomach growled in a meeting, and she looked right at me like, "Was that your stomach?"
Everyone always thinks
No,
it's
it
fat
was
guy.
yours. Exactly.
I was looking
The
at
fat
you
guy.
like, did you hear it?
Oh,
But
okay. Well, I
just
did hear
now,
it.
that was a fart.
No, he just said it was a door somewhere in the building.
Oh, okay.
Either way, that's a great interruption.
Do you smell it?
So you would say gift from the church,
Gift from the church.
church
not,
budget, church gift.
Yeah, buy them for
Yeah.
the seniors if you
Yeah.
have a church. If you have a church budget, the thing that happens to me now after so many years is when kids go on mission trips and they graduate from the ministry, and Kathy and I are getting at least once a week. Can you sponsor this? Can you do this?
Yeah.
Can you do that? And
Do you have kind of a standard response for that?
here's the standard response for that.
Not a chance. Just kidding.
I
No,
didn't
the
like
stand-
you then. I don't like you now.
No, the standard response for support is
Here, catch a spear
proud of you.
with your face.
Would be thrilled to support you. Why didn't you go ahead and raise your support? And if you still need some at the end of raising support, write us back. Because what happens is if you give $50 to every kid, great. But most of them overraise their support anyway. But the few times when those kids don't raise their support and they come back and go, we're $400 short, you actually really get to help out.
Yeah.
But so we.
But if you give in the beginning, you're still helping.
Yeah, we used to give a little to everybody, and then went, what?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're really making any
Yeah.
difference. So we
Yeah.
just tried that. Said we'd love to support you at the end if you don't raise all your
Yeah.
money.
Get
Raise
back
back.
with us quick.
What do you do about wedding gifts?
Wedding gifts, I'm not as good at.
6
You
months
send a
afterwards.
letter saying,
Etiquette
"Hey."
says you have 6 months.
6
1
months.
year. You have 1 year.
Oh, 1 year.
You
How
have
long
1
has
year.
Ryan been married?
6 months.
6 months.
Oh,
I
you're
get plenty of
playing.
time.
You're fine.
No, you don't. 6 months is a nanosecond for you.
No, for me, if I do the wedding, I don't give a gift.
That's the gift.
Nah, I just don't do a gift.
See, if I show up to a wedding, that's the gift.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Any other opinions on that one before we move on?
Well, if you don't have a church budget, I say sock puppets.
So they're always good.
Because nothing says love and happy graduation like a sock puppet.
If you don't have a church budget, though, I think not going back to
Origami.
your writing a letter, but I think cards,
Absolutely.
letters are.
Yeah.
I know I have letters from people who have written to me on significant dates like graduation
Yeah.
that I've kept. So
Yeah. Well, with Tori graduating this year, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going to get all of you guys, all the friends, to write letters. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that is
Yeah.
the gift 10 years from now, 5 years from now. That'll be the gift, her freshman year in college when she's reading those. Cassie, who just turned 12, I mean, the birthday world is a crazy world. She invited 19 girls to her birthday party because she thought 10 might show up. 19 showed up.
Oh, wow.
Gift are like
Gift cards.
$25. I mean, she scored like $400 at this, just under $400 with cash and
Man.
gift certificates and all that. And I thought, this is amazing. She
It
goes
is
to a
crazy.
birthday party and I give her 5.
Yeah, I'm going to start
this-
celebrating half birthdays at this rate. Man.
You got
I'll
4
give you
kids.
less than
They're
half a
raking
gift.
it in.
4 kids, yeah, they're gonna be loaded.
All right, anybody else on?
We didn't have too many seniors. We just gave $10 per senior, and the church usually gave a little gift too, like maybe a graduation book.
So
of
your
some
family
kind.
would give 10.
Our
per
family would
senior?
give $10. We'd go to their open house and give them a nice card with a few nice words in it. But then at the end of the year, this is a little bit related, but not exactly the question. We actually did like a senior service too, where we honor the seniors. Had like maybe a banquet night or something like that. Just some fun
For
ways to
some
build.
reason, I have a
it.
hard time seeing you give $10. I'd like to confirm that with Angela.
Angela's the one who gave it.
She
think so?
she totally.
Oh, I-
owns
I
that.
know
Yeah,
so.
if we go to a wedding and if there's a check, I didn't even see the check. She just.
Angela gives money away like it's water.
That's true.
I've never got any.
Well, you
Which is
not
why
really
Give
Josh
money away
can't
to
give
Josh
money
like
away.
water.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is
And
why
they say the water flows downhill.
there you go. No, she's super good at it. In fact, we upped what we give for birthdays from $10 to $15 this year.
Oh goodness, inflation.
Wow. Did you guys have
Yeah.
a conversation about that?
No, she just told me that's what we're doing. Okay. It's kind of standard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Standardized gift giving.
All right, Matt and Beth Johnson, Nicholsville United Methodist Church, Nicholsville, Kentucky.
Is this 2 people, Matt and Beth?
Matt and Beth, right?
Oh,
Matt
okay.
and
I thought
Beth.
it was Madden Beth. Like
what
that
if
was
you
the
were
name
named
Madden,
after?
like John Madden.
What if you're named after John Madden?
It's
And his
awesome.
wife, Matt
Too
and
bad I
Beth.
had a vasectomy. Oh well.
My wife and I are the co-directors at Nicholsville United Methodist Church. We recently read PDYM, which, speaking of PDYM, don't we have a community lunch happening?
Yes.
We do.
What is the
Just a
date?
few weeks. Well, there's actually a bunch
April
of different
what?
dates. April
Depends on where your location is.
24th through like May 5th.
So check out pdymcommunity.com.
PDYMcommunity.com. Locations all over the U.S.
It's gonna sound like we just read that, but
It does.
it's
yeah.
all.
But you can see that we're not. Well, actually, you're holding paper.
Yeah, but it doesn't say PDYM.
Yeah.
Look, see?
See? So the guy read
And we have some
PDYM.
exclusive training at our
Yeah,
it's
this
a-
is
and
cool.
it's like a free lunch, right?
No, here's the deal.
Well-
Lunch. The
Oh.
only way to get Jana on the
Training.
show
Yeah.
is to pump Sardi Design
Gosh.
You
and
good?
PDYMcommunity.com.
You're good.
There we go. You can
And
listen to all
intense.
47 other shows,
And we've never
we've
talked about
pumped
either one.
anything. But now
Yeah.
Jana's here.
And we've talked about a few things.
It's
She's
got to
a
make her
shrewd-
worth her time.
She's a shrewd marketer.
She's a world traveler. We were able to identify 21 students whom we consider to be crowd kids who attend our Sunday night program. As we've done this, I'm also in the process of planning our next teaching series, and I'm feeling that we need to spend some time with Jesus. When you do a series on Jesus that is specifically designed for crowd kids, especially those who haven't heard about Jesus before, how do you plan it? How do you introduce Jesus to kids who don't know or only sort of know about Jesus? How do you show Jesus to love students to be transformational in their lives? Something that I've been struggling to figure out. It's a good question.
It's a
Fantastic.
good question.
Yeah, it's. I mean, on one hand, for me, it's a little surprising, just because.
Because you're a veteran.
No, because I mean, my whole life I've heard you teaching Jesus to crowd level kids. I mean, it's just so.
Non-believers. And
Yeah,
and
so
for
to
those
me,
who don't know crowd level kids from PDYM, if you haven't read it, crowd is your entry level. Your audience is going to be Christian kids and non-Christian kids. It's your front door.
people who are committed to hearing about Christ.
But that's it.
That's it. That's it. So to me, there's on one hand, it's a little surprising, but I'm really over. Like at the same time, I'm excited. I'm excited that somebody would ask this and struggle with this. You know, one thing that just came to my mind when I was reading that from Matt and Beth, is that maybe find some of the kids, you know, 1 or 2 of the kids that you know don't know anything about Jesus, and take them out to lunch and just talk to them and just see where they're at, see what they know, see what their concept of Jesus is, what they know, what they don't, what they think is funny, or what they think is I was going to say disarming, but I want the opposite of that. Well, anyhow, what they think is
Yeah.
daunting. That's not even the right word either. But what they think is what's kind of keeping them from
Obstacles.
understanding obstacles.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. Like, so what are some obstacles to understanding who Jesus is? Or, I think he's like this, or I think he's like that. So I think that's one idea. So you can get a feel for how they're at, and then when you're putting your message together, you just keep those two guys or
Cool.
guy, girl, whatever, in your mind as you're putting it together.
All right. And answer the questions that they've asked or that you talked about, and work those into your talk for the whole audience.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you're not, non-Christian kids that might be there that are coming to church, they're not thinking, oh, I hope they don't talk about Jesus.
Right. There's an
Right.
expectation
Sure,
that
they
this
know
is
that
church.
They're showing up.
Right.
And, yesterday, front page of the newspaper in Southern California, there's a discussion, debate in one of our school districts about teaching Bible as literature. Now, when I was in high school, that was an acceptable class. Bible as literature wasn't necessarily taught by Christians, just saying, hey, here's great literature.
Right. Amazing book.
And so from the way that I've taught about Jesus is, hey, very few people deny the existence of Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
That we have so much extra biblical literature that Jesus existed. What people deny is that, he was who he said he was, which was God. So we're going to talk about Jesus. I a lot of times I'll do it from a radical perspective. A lot of times as teenagers, hey, everybody wants to be different. Everybody wants to be set apart. Everybody wants to be radical.
Right.
Well, let me teach you about somebody who was more set apart, more radical, revolutionary.
Right. Way ahead of his time.
Pure indie rock.
The lead singer. No. Yeah, and I was just thinking of the series that are even available that we sell, When People Meet Jesus, which is a series on people who interacted with Jesus in some way. He did what is kind of the radical, what? Jesus did that? We have some resources too that would say, here, you want to know how we teach it? Here's some transcripts and outlines and MP3s of how we did it.
And I'm sure there's some freebies of the first one.
Absolutely.
Usually most of our super series.
Almost all super series have the first week free. So grab those, see how we do it, and then you don't have to buy it if you want to.
And I think there's two things to keep in mind. One is you want to stay away from the churchy words, from the things that Christian culture has,
Only Christians understand.
only Christians
Yeah.
understand, and so stay away from those. Even as you're looking at your outline, try and somehow have that kind of perspective. But the other thing is too is I don't have this attitude that you need to dumb it down. You don't need to dumb Jesus down just because you're not talking to all these super committed Christians. I think that's a misconception that people have, and I think that's not right. I think what you need to do is you need to stick to things that matter. So if you're talking about Jesus calming the sea, and it says in the scriptures that he sat down on a cushion and fell asleep, you don't need to talk about the cushion and figure out how many thread count it has, and whether it came from Egypt and filled with goose down hair. You don't have to talk
Or
about
ghosts.
things that are.
I'm kind of surprised you know what thread count is.
I know lots of things
He
about
knows
threads.
a lot about the sheets.
It comes with just my expertise of being with me. But
What
I
a
just
gift it is.
what a
presence.
gift it is. But my thing is that I think is that you look at Jesus and you look at what happened. I mean, most of the time he spent his time with the crowds. I mean, most of the time he was talking to the crowds, talking to people that didn't have a whole heck of a lot of ideas of who he was and what he stood for. But I think that if you think to yourself, how do I stick to talking about what matters, like what makes a difference in somebody's life? I think you'll be solid.
Actually, I just wrote that down. A lot of times we ask questions, what do I want to teach? Versus who's in my audience.
Well,
Exactly.
I think like Matt said that survey first of what do they know? What do they really know before we start assuming what we think they don't know even, Because like you said, most people know Jesus, they just don't know about him.
Yeah. And if the people in your crowd don't know how many disciples there were, that when you think about it, like that really, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't change your life to know that there's 12 disciples, and I mean
Well, basically what you're saying is you want to make sure they know more than Bible trivia.
yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
surveying your audience, finding out what they know. But you're also in the crowd. If I'm communicating with the crowd, I've also got to know that part of my audience over here doesn't know anything. And part of my audience has grown up in the church that knows all about Jesus. So how do I communicate where I'm communicating to teenagers, not just Christians versus non-Christians?
Exactly.
So that both of them walk out challenged.
Exactly.
Well, and you always make a mention to that. You always do at some point in your message say some of you are here seeking and some of you are sold
stumbling.
out. Yeah, and some of you are in between and stumbling, you know.
Well, and as soon as you do that in communication, when you identify where kids are at, hey, some of you are just checking out this God thing, some of you are totally committed, some of you are like flailing all over the place. You've been struggling for a long time. It says, he knows me, she knows me.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And I'm okay to be here.
Yeah, it's safe.
Yeah.
Do you think all of our series has come around to that in the end, though? Even if we're not teaching a series on Jesus, I mean, somewhere maybe towards the end of the series, there is a dramatic conclusion that includes something from the life of Jesus. Don't you think we kind of always drive towards that, whether it's simple presentation of the gospel and salvation, or
I'd have to go look at all the outlines to answer that question.
Well, I would say theoretically, you want to ultimately at some point get back to the cross.
right? I mean, we're always
what's this
pointing
all
people
about?
to Jesus, even if it's a series that's not about this is
Sure.
something else.
Hey, let me make a little deal here, because next week and actually yesterday and today, and Duffy Robbins and I are writing this book on speaking to teenagers.
Cool.
And we have the cover. We had a due date that was passed. It's actually Duffy and I have both been talking about it, because I'm reading some of the stuff. We're actually both writing chapters. So he'll start it, then I'll go in and finish it, and then he'll get it again. And we're not doing like you do chapter 1, you do chapter 2.
Yeah.
And he's just so smart. He's so much smarter than me. And so I'm like, Duffy, I don't even like messing with your stuff because it's so good. He's like, hey, yeah, but you've actually written books that sold. So, we both feel like this little intimidated by one another. But it's really turned out to be a great book. But we just came up with the idea the other day that we're going to do a last chapter on frequently asked questions. So I said, maybe I'll mention it on the podcast, or I was even thinking about sending an email out. So
fantastic.
if you're listening and you could have a book on speaking to teenagers,
All right.
What would be a question you would want to know? So
Fantastic.
now if it's covered in the content, that's an easy.
Right.
We can say, hey, look, chapter 6.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to put at the very last
That's
chapter
cool.
20 or 30 questions.
Yeah.
So why don't you send those in to us at podcast
Yeah, and
at simpleyouthministry.org.
our emails were down a little bit this week, so if you have any other youth ministry questions too that you want to ask on the show, podcast.
Yeah, because we don't have enough questions to get to at all. All right, good. This is from Jay Beerley, First Baptist Church, Wake Village, Texas.
I wasn't even going to flinch that time.
Because you've missed them all. For
For
those listening,
got
I've been
the
throwing
first
the
one.
questions away, and Josh tried to block. Well, he did block Y,
I
and then since
completely
then,
rejected the first one.
since then, have been able to put him in the
All right. Let's-
popcorn machine. Is that what
Wait,
you're saying?
that one didn't even make it though. You have to at least make it.
Now, got a quick question. Evaluating what it takes to start right, what would you say is more important at the beginning of the ministry? Winning the hearts of students, or parents, or volunteers? In my last church, I think a major issue in my ministry was not being as successful as I wanted it to be, was not getting volunteers and parents on board from the beginning. Would love your insight.
You're supposed to win people's hearts.
People are supposed to like you?
How to win friends and influence
Is that what
people.
you're thinking?
Dang it. No wonder I suck.
No. That explains so much.
Oh, man.
Well, I think there's a
Where
natural
was Jay
tendency
Beerley 9 years ago?
to go right to students, don't you think?
Sure.
You want to
It's more
instantly.
comfortable.
Yeah.
It's easier.
You're going to spend the most time with them by default anyhow, so you want to win them over, get credibility, be cool, or whatever right out of the gate. So I would say the tendency is students, right or wrong. That's what the tendency is.
Yeah, that's definitely a tendency. I think when you say most important, that's a tough question, because there's got to be some kind of a balance. I mean, I think that
agree.
a lot of the youth workers that it seems like we run into that they've kind of got their own little camp, they've got their army with the students, but then they're kind of cut off from the leaders and they're cut off from parents, and
I agree. I think your best strategy is balance, but knowing that you can't come out with game A and expect that to be balanced in the first 6 months. I mean, you got to go slow and yet do balance.
What does game A mean?
Well, like your hardest game, go hard.
Would it be a game?
Your A game.
Oh, your A
okay,
game.
game A.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Uh,
Weren't you a
I'm saying,
professional
like-
cheerleader?
Right there.
No, that's right. You were a cheerleader.
She brought her game A.
She was a professional cheerleader.
Okay, guys, break the
Game
huddle.
A being planned, my first plan of like, this is my ideal plan, what I would
That
like
would be
to do.
plan
Your
A.
A game.
Okay, well,
Your A game or your plan A?
Well, that's right.
Plan
Yeah,
B?
plan
We're in
A.
Australia, so it could be game A.
It would be plan A.
Everything is
game.
backwards down under.
Yeah.
right, the
I'm gonna
toilets.
go. I'm gonna go. I don't think I've really thought about this question too much, to be honest. Winning the hearts of people. So I don't know.
You
that
just win the hearts of everyone you're with.
I would say I have an opinion, and I would say maybe volunteers is the best because they will help you.
So a real strong opinion.
I'm saying it's a.
I maybe have an opinion.
I maybe have an opinion about everything. I would say maybe volunteers is the right way. They will help you reach students, be a better minister to students, and I think they will help you reach and communicate, raise the visibility, and help parents. So I would, again, not having thought about it too much, I would say volunteers is probably at least a concentration after you get through the first few months.
And that might depend on what you're walking into as far as what volunteers
Very
are.
true.
Well, and because of that question, what you're walking into, I would say your first response is who's ever hiring you, your supervisor, whether it be senior pastor or elders
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
What are the expectations? So identifying those expectations, and they all of a sudden they go, you know what, we've gone through 5 youth workers in the last 3 years, and the credibility is really low, and so it'd be great if you could spend time, get your supervisor's opinion first. But I think when it comes down to your given week, and you're in a church and you've got X number of hours to do relational youth ministry, that you split those hours. That you split those hours with your kids and volunteers.
And maybe not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
No, I don't necessarily think it's 1/3 kids, 1/3 volunteers, 1/3 parents. But I would say if I gave it percentages, I'd say 45% kids, 45% volunteers, and 10% parents.
That's funny. I went the pie chart. I was going to say 2/5 kids, 3/5 leaders, 1/5 parents.
That's 6
Well,
fifths.
How many fifths is that?
That's
Well,
6/5.
plus you
No.
went straight to a pie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dang it.
See, I went to my game A.
Boy, you really
Okay,
brought your
but
game in.
Spending
this
time
week.
with kids, really, I mean, if you're successfully winning a kid, so to speak, you're going to get their parent too. Parents love.
Well, that's it. To me, the 10% is when you're dropping that kid off, you're popping in, meeting
Saying
the parents.
hi,
You're, you are spending. You're ultimately looking. How do I care for this family?
Yeah.
But you gotta have everybody on the radar. But ultimately, you don't want to be the Pied Piper, the only person caring for teenagers. So at some point, you're going in and, hey, I just want to...
Unless you want to feed that Messiah complex that you have, then that's exactly what you're going for.
That's ultimately the students in your ministry that are going to be cared for are going to be cared for your volunteers. So you're walking into a setting, and you want to love the people. You want to love the students. You want to love the volunteers. You're trying to establish a philosophy of ministry. You're getting people on board. You're spending time. You're spending time with everybody.
Just do what Jesus did.
WWJD.
All right, here we go. Let's see what you got.
Seriously?
There's no way you can get it past me.
Really?
Not a chance.
I've got it past you every time.
He's gonna
but
like
once.
body
I will
block
stand
it.
up.
Yeah, I see.
I'm sorry, man.
Oh, I'm okay. Just don't touch my computer.
Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
how
That was
fucking
right
people
in the
are watching
face.
it.
You should get the video podcast.
I'm
for
sure
this
you heard
moment.
that.
I'm
If
sorry,
we could
Matt.
slow that down with me throwing the paper and him swatting it and going
Well, this is
straight into your
HD
face.
television.
'Cause to me-
HD.
Are you okay? I feel like I might have given you a paper cut. That was a pretty intense
yeah.
That was a
rejection.
piece of paper.
Yeah, paper hit my face. I think I'm okay.
Seriously.
But I feel bad.
Well, you should.
Matt is mentally tough, but I don't know about how well he
Well,
handles
he
paper
does
in
have
the
a very
face.
low
All right,
tolerance.
but you know what we're gonna get Matt back in.
Lord,
because I've
please
got,
give you gout.
Question about food. Here we go.
No, death.
Speaking of death,
Oh, someone talk about my best friend?
you cuddle with death at night.
This is
Yeah.
from our buddy Matthew McNutt, who is the world's greatest.
Yes.
He is the world.
Which I went on my
biggest
MySpace page last
biggest
night for the
loser.
first time in 6 months, and he posted a note on my MySpace. I
Yeah,
feel
you
bad.
hadn't logged in since like August.
Yeah.
Matthew McNutt, Booth Bay, Maine, was on World's Biggest Loser, right?
Yes.
Is that what's called?
Yeah, didn't win.
Didn't win.
The
World's
biggest loser.
Biggest Loser?
Biggest loser.
The big, I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah,
I
and
only
he-
watched it when he was on
We
it.
met him at YS last year. He
A
was
game.
A small. He was a small shell of a man compared to what he used to be.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
On a completely different note, he says, last week, one of the girls in my group was rushed to the hospital, was very close to death for several days before finally beginning to improve. To be honest, I wasn't really prepared with any kind of plan of action if she did die, which had got me scared. as it was, my group was completely freaking out. It really got me thinking. I live in a small town, but even so, there is a teen death every few years, and the longer I'm here, the greater the chance it will be someone connected to the church. How would you respond? There is another one, came in the same week. This is, I crossed out the name, so it must mean, we'll just call this person Joseph. He wrote and said, somebody in his youth group, the dad was killed, was a police officer and was killed. How do I help my students deal with something like this? What's the best way to counsel a student who is genuinely hurting? So, a couple death questions. As we prepare to take a bunch of kids to Mexico, these are the times I think about it. Well, no, I just think about this a lot.
We've never lost anybody down there.
I know. And
Yeah.
Kid got lost for 4 hours once. I
Yeah.
thought he was going to be sold on the Oregon market.
I found him.
Are
You
the one
did?
that found it?
Yes.
Did he have both his kids?
Me and Ricardo.
Oh my! He was at the police station. How hard was that to find?
Well, I had to go back and find that he was at the police station.
But here's the good
When it
thing.
comes to going international, Jana brings Game A.
That's right. Well, here's the best thing about this kid that got lost, right? A year later, I get a note from his mom, and I have to speak at his Eagle Scouting. And so this kid was an Eagle Scout, and he gets lost. It's like, what's up with
There's a little-
Boy Scouts of America these days?
Yeah.
Well, he was in Mexico.
It's so
That was the
downhill.
problem.
He got distracted
That's right.
and we went
In
shopping.
America, he wouldn't have been lost.
It's Boy Scouts of Mexico.
Boy Scouts of North America.
Okay, so you got kids in your ministry or kids in your community, death. Whew.
I think. Well, should I start off here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
jump
I've
in.
got a serious response. I think you really need to have when you look at the situation, you need to look at it with two. You need to have an emotional strategy and an intellectual strategy, and the intellectual strategy is understated. It's kind of in your back pocket, and the reason I say is that definitely there's going to be some people that are hurting. Obviously, the closer to the situation. In relationships and in time, so if it's a girl and her dad dies, like that girl, she needs an emotional support. She doesn't need to have a theological or an intellectual answer, anything like that. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So, there needs to be some kind of something that says, "Hey, I don't have all the answers. We're here for you."
Presence.
There definitely needs to be presence. I think there maybe needs to be a little bit of strategy stuff with. A little bit of a relational follow-up strategy as far as, hey, here's the funeral, here's who's going to be there, here's some people that are going to call you, here's some people that are going to check in next couple of weeks, next couple of months. I mean, you can have a little bit of a strategy for presence, and I think that's important. And I think what's also important is that there should be some kind of an intellectual, why do bad things happen? Only because at some point, the further away you get from the situation, either in relationships, so it's the fifth friend of this girl who's saying, well, wait a minute, why does God even let people die? So there's going to be, and the further away you get in time, so the girl, maybe 6 months later, she's going to really want to have some kind of an intellectual, theological, some answers to help support that.
But you're not leading with that.
And that's what I wanted to start with. You don't lead with that, and you don't. I mean, that's totally inappropriate and not helpful.
Well, the first thing death does is it moves everybody into total discomfort that's around that person. Because everybody thinks, you start thinking about it when you talk to people, so somebody who died, and, well, should I call them?
Right.
Tori, who's 18, my daughter, a kid that she was in a Mexico village with, doesn't know him very well, but his dad committed suicide a few months ago. And Tori was like, Dad, should I call? What do I do? I don't really know the guy, but it just throws you into that. Somebody else is taking care of him and things like that. And I think this is where the church has the potential to be the greatest act of love. And I think, the power of presence is so important at this point, because you just don't want to be alone. When my dad died a few years back, Matt sat in my kitchen, and we kind of knew. I mean, it wasn't like a shocking deal. We knew that, eventually my dad was going to die. But, Matt sat in my kitchen for hours, kind of working on a slideshow or something like that. And just that, we didn't even talk about it that much.
I think I scanned like 300 pictures or something like that. It was awesome.
But, to me,
Yeah.
what, 4 years later now?
Oh, you still have all? Oh, yeah. It wasn't. I don't say it as like it was a total worthwhile use
No,
of time.
but he's saying that
you were there.
Yeah,
That's
to me,
the key.
that
Yeah.
was the presence. And, we had to go to the mortuary and pick out a casket.
Yeah.
Well, you got 400 caskets to pick out, and they all begin to look the same. And, Steve Rutenbar, Jake's dad,
Yeah,
went with
yeah.
me and just
That's
kind of
cool.
brokered that whole thing. And you're just, when death hits, people are so confused and so emotionally numb that this is when the church shows up. And so I would say to Matthew and to other youth workers, one of our jobs is to prepare our youth ministry team for not if, but when.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what Matthew's saying in
Yeah.
here, is kind of going, well, this was almost an if, but it's going to be a when. So
Yeah.
now I prepare my volunteers, hey, you guys, when this happens, when this crisis happens, when there's a shooting, when something, we're going to be the church that responds.
Right.
So just know you're going to get a call, and here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and really, you just show up. You just show up,
Yeah.
and there's things that come up that you can respond to. You don't have to show up with answers. You just show up and be present.
Yeah.
I think in youth ministry we have a tendency to rely on our own gifts and abilities and talent and head knowledge and all those the
Game
skill
plan.
set and the get right. And I think sometimes these are desperate moments, but I think there's some of the best moments in youth ministries when you're not ready for a response and you're not relying on your own ability. You don't even know what to do. And those are spirit moments that are super powerful and will be remembered forever. I think you're a little disarmed because it's uncomfortable and you're not in your sweet spot and you're going, I do not know what to do. And yet that's when the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit does something special.
Yeah.
So as uncomfortable as these moments are, this might be where the best youth ministry happens.
Yeah.
I remember.
Don't
a couple
teach
years
from
ago-
Ecclesiastes the week after.
There's a time for everything.
A couple years ago,
It's better
a
go to the
local
house of mourning.
student though died, and we just opened our church and made it available to people who wanted to come and ask questions, and we
Yeah.
staffed it with our youth team and volunteers, and we were just present and took the chaos away from their scene, and said, hey, we'll be available to these students. And
Yeah, and they didn't even go to our church.
No.
We just served the family. We had
Yeah.
we had soft drinks, and we told you guys can use this as a place to meet. There was a lot of kids who just came, and
Right.
we led in I think we led in a prayer or something like that. It wasn't, I've been working in the church a long time, and I will tell you to this day, death still is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But having experienced it with my dad prior to it was really uncomfortable. Now it's minorly uncomfortable because I just have now gone through it, the fellow struggler. When we were on vacation, this was right after Christmas, and the guy who leads sign language at
This is international
that was
symbol
my
for sign
sign
language. There.
it leads sign language at Saddleback. His son died, and I didn't know his son, but I barely knew him, but I knew he was a leader in our church, and so I can't remember where we were. Somebody called or email or something like that, so I called him that night when I had heard, and I said, hey, I pop over, but I'm in Hawaii right now on vacation, and I just called to say I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. I appreciate you, and I just called to say I'm sorry. Well, he broke down. He couldn't
Wow.
believe that I would call, that I don't really know him, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that next morning, I wrote him a little letter, put it in the mail, and then I showed up at the funeral, and the funeral was packed. I wound up directing traffic and doing different things like that. But he caught me last weekend. Now, so we're now 4 months later,
Interesting. Yeah.
and with tears in his eyes, he just said, "I can't tell you how much it meant that you called.
That's
I just can't
awesome.
tell you how much it meant."
How old was his son?
32. 32. So he's 55, but it was one of those things, and I don't say that to pat myself on the back because I've
Sure,
missed
no,
way
we
many
get it.
opportunities,
We
but
get
I
it,
think
yeah.
just the simple thing of a phone call, a presence, a letter, that you're not alone in this moment. But
That's super.
I think Matthew and anybody else, you prepare your team. We're gonna have to respond to something one of these days.
I think it's two other things too. One, I think it's worth it to throw it on, if it's a kid in your youth group especially, throw it on your Outlook or whatever, so it pops up in 6 months and it pops up a year later. So you're intentionally, you're not just forgetting about it in the.
You didn't just get them through that moment. But
Yeah,
you're getting them through
the longevity is really important. And the other thing is too is I think depending on if you're a writer or like to create materials and stuff like that, like it's worthwhile to have, even if it's a card with 6 verses on it. Not that you're handing it out to everybody again, but actually I learned this from Steve Rutenbar. What he does a ton of this shepherding pastoral care stuff. Is that he has a ton of 3x5 cards with verses on it, and if the moment's right, he says, hey, this is one of God's promises, or. So I think it's worth it to create some materials, not to use it as a marketing blitz. I just want to be so
And I'm even
clear
careful
on that.
about handing something out like that, because I've said to people before, when this happens, my default line is I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like to lose a son or daughter or something like that. And people say, I don't want you to say anything. The people
Yeah.
that have said things to me say the wrong things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think you got to be.
It's
you gotta be
really
careful. But
it's really
the
tough.
idea of celebrating an anniversary or holidays or things like that post a death is
Yeah.
very important. A semi-humorous story. Last year,
I'll be the judge of that.
yeah, well, that's why it's semi.
Your presence is enough.
Kay Warren's dad died. So
Yeah, not funny.
Rick and Kay.
So far, this is a C.
Yeah. Well, but on my calendar,
Game C.
on my calendar, I wrote, Bert Lewis died, and I put it on my calendar. So when this year came up, I sent Bonnie, the wife, and Kay flowers, and said, I know the 1 year deal is a rough day. And I've been journeying with Kay for 15 years at Saddleback, so I felt like I have a relationship to say, I care about you in this moment. I know what it's like when you experience that day. And so I see him at church, and they both gave me a big hug, and that was so sweet of you to do that. Well, then like 2 weeks ago, they come up to me in church, and he goes, "This is really the 1 year."
Oh no!
And I go, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, Bert died a year ago today." And I had sent the flowers a month ago. And she goes, "We're going to go have a picnic and go to the funeral site and, all that." She goes, you had the wrong date on your calendar. You had it a month early."
You had the wrong date on your calendar.
That's beautiful.
So I sent him February
flowers?
25th instead of March 25th or something like that.
That's
So
brilliant.
I celebrated
So,
the 11 month.
That's
I
a big,
know how
that's
hard
a
the
big
11 month
milestone.
is, guys.
Yeah.
It's a big milestone for the dead.
In all the studies I've read, it's the 11 month where people break down.
Yeah. Oh, did you think I was doing that at the 1 year?
I meant year in more of a general sense.
Yeah.
By the way, the Aztecs reckon the calendar.
Oh,
That's funny.
Yeah.
Because in my mind I was processing some
Yeah.
type of
Humor.
Some type of
calendar.
Chinese
humor, and I couldn't
dragon
come up
year.
with anything.
Oh,
It's
really?
actually really not funny because isn't our calendar based on the Aztecs?
that's also
I think
not
it's
funny.
based on. I think it's based
And
on
even I can be the
charismatic
judge of
versus
that one.
Pentecostals.
Hey, didn't we get an email about that?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
just said thanks for. It was the guy that you chose the number 1 between 10, and he got 8 free gifts.
Yeah, free
Oh.
Yeah,
resources.
and then
Yikes.
he kind of wrote a little
He was from a
dissertation
Pentecostal
on
church?
the difference between
Yeah.
charismatic and Pentecostal.
So there is a difference.
Well,
We aren't
it
gonna
wasn't
do it.
very
That was-
strong.
yeah.
I mean, God bless
Basically-
you for
Well,
writing
my-
it, but basically he said, charismatics is an offshoot of Pentecostal. So
Right.
And which one's better?
Better.
Everybody knows Lutherans are the best.
all right.
And that's why you work
Especially
at a
Luther.
Southern Baptist church.
And that. Wait a minute. Yeah, I should be Lutheran then.
This is a guy who he says, "I appreciate if you went anonymous on this one." And
What's his
I
name?
just broke his heart. I broke his heart. I could feel.
I was gonna be like,
What's
whoa.
going on?
No, I could feel his heart as I read this because I've been there so many times. He goes, "I'm wrestling tonight. I'm heading to bed." One of my former students wrote me this long email that I just got. And he goes on to talk about this was one of his favorite students of all time. He was real involved and sensitive and kind and fun, hilarious. Had him speak a lot as a student leader. He's brilliant. He went to one of the top universities in the country. Anyway, I got an email from him saying that he doesn't want to hide anymore that he's decided he's bisexual.
Wow.
That He's clarified it doesn't mean he's promiscuous, but that this is him. I still believe his relationship with Christ is important, yet it breaks my heart. And he goes, and he went to responded pretty quickly about how much he loves the guy and da-da-da-da-da. But he says, how do I, one, in moments like this, decide that doing youth ministry is worth it?
What? Okay, maybe I didn't understand
Let
that.
him finish.
And two, how do I keep loving him unconditionally, yet finding any sort of balance of reaffirming what I believe he knows to be true, that this is not necessarily pleasing to God. But I think for me, what gripped me was that line right there, the one that Matt responded to in a different way that I did.
To me, that's why you do it.
In moments
Yeah,
like this,
that's
you
exactly what I
decide,
was just gonna
yeah,
say.
but you guys, think about, I mean, have you
Sure,
poured,
you
poured
can
into
give-
somebody, you've given them your whole life, and then, in some ways,
I can't.
I believe it all the time. I go, gosh.
I can't think of a single person I've poured into that I'm not disappointed with.
Including the three of
maybe
us.
this goes back to frame of reference. Then.
Oh gosh, no! I'm just. I mean that as a joke.
When I read this, I went,
Jake.
oh, I've had that feeling so
Well,
Sure.
many
Jake.
times.
Sure.
You just go, gosh, is this worth it? Gosh, is this worth
But
it?
that's when I think you have to remind yourself that this is why you do it, though.
I
This-
agree. And the more
Yeah.
to me, that it goes back to the death thing. You've got the
Logical,
emotional
sure.
and you've got the intellectual. We
Right.
can respond intellectual because
We're
we're
removed
distant
from
from this guy. But
Right.
I can respond. I mean, I just go. There's so many times I've went, oh, phew, and we just wasted our time with this.
Yeah.
So I think the bigger principle, whether this kid is bisexual or you've invested in your student leader and he shows up drunk to youth group, or one of your girls
Right.
gets pregnant, or whatever it is, it's
Right.
just that lifestyle choices that you take so personally,
Sure.
because every week you're going, God's way is the way. God's way is the way.
Right.
You're whatever
You're
it is.
beating that drum, yeah.
You are trying to be Jesus and move people, and John the Baptist, repent and all the stuff,
Yeah.
and then you emotionally get connected with kids, and then it's tough.
Well, and I think that in the moment, that's when you get defeated. A few years from now, when you mentioned a girl getting pregnant, we had a student, one of our star, just great, godly girl, really got it, incredible witness, the whole thing. She got pregnant,
So
and
she
it was,
did get it.
and so it was.
Sorry, that was
They don't all work. That's
that was
right.
game B humor.
Or C.
But in the
Or
moment,
X.
that was super defeating. Like, oh my goodness, if this is the representative of a great student, then man, we're really in trouble. But a few years later, she is married. Eventually, has a couple more kids, and she's turned out she still loves God, and things worked out okay. I mean, that was a dark hour where it hurt, and the defeat is super real. But I would say, in a few years, God, there's a journey that's happening. This is a moment in time. It's not worth giving up right now. I mean, I'm not saying the guy's going to go straight or whatever, but I'm saying don't give up.
This is going to be tough, and I'm sure that I'll get some comments on this from this room. But I think it's really important, like one of your first or second steps or whatever, is you really need to ask yourself why it bothers you. I think you really need to be honest with yourself. And does it bother you because you're just disappointed? Or does it bother you because you feel like that person owes you something? Does it bother you because it feels like, now you're not a good enough leader because this person
didn't do a
fell?
good
You really need to take a hard look and say, okay, why does this? Because guaranteed, God is more grieved over this than you are, and so you don't need to be. And I'm not saying this person is in that category at all. So it's not it's a general comment.
Okay,
that,
well, let's role play that for a second.
so
Okay.
yeah.
You're a father of Max and Mark McGill.
I did it 4 months before Max got born. I was painting his room. I was thinking this very thing.
Okay.
I thought, what happens?
Max walks into your room and smacks Mark in the face.
Okay.
Probably
I thought
happens
you were going to
daily.
go with the homosexuality
Yeah,
thing.
me too. Why is his room pink? Is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
No, just why does it disappoint you
No, I'm not
when
saying
you see him being disobedient?
I'm not saying I don't understand the disappointment. And I would say sometimes it disappoints me because I think, oh man, aren't I a good enough father to teach him self-control? And there's a healthy side to that where it's like, okay, well, how am I teaching my kids self-control? I mean, there is a healthy self-examination,
Self-evaluation,
self-evaluation point, but there's also a lot of us in ministry do have this Savior, Messiah complex, this I am the almighty leader, and if people around me sin, then it's because I'm not a good leader. And you would never say it. You would never say it in a room, but you live your life like it, and you get your peace is based on that.
So a kid is
Okay,
successful.
See, now that's a different. Your piece based on that is, to me, seems like a different angle, because you just said when Max hits Mark, am I not a good enough parent?
Right.
So wouldn't that be the Messiah parenting complex? But again, it goes to a more of a,
Yeah, well, I'd say
when
there's a
those
good and
emotions
bad.
arise, kind of the why do I feel this? Then you dig down and discern.
Yes.
Don't you think
Yes,
part
the
of this
emotional response itself. I would not. I'd not discount that at all. I mean, I think that's good.
To me,
Go ahead. No, you
well,
go.
to me,
You're
it goes back to there's going to be moments of disappointment, and so a little bit of preparation of somebody's going to let me, somebody that I've poured into and invested in is going to let me down in their choices.
Yes.
That's just part of what we signed up for.
And sin nature.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Be
now, is it
prepared for
discouraging in that moment? Absolutely. But I also feel like that's like I get to be the church in that moment. This happened to us a couple years ago in college ministry. Somebody posted, he posted his coming out on MySpace, and to me, I was like, let's be the first to respond. Let's be the first to write him. Let's be the first to show compassion. Let's be the first to, extend grace and figure this out with him. Let's not leave him alone in his, coming out or in his pain. I mean, obviously he's in pain. He's confused. He's hurting. He didn't come to us and tell us. He put it, he said it publicly because he was afraid of what people might say in person.
That's really good, Jana.
And I think it's it's a tough thing because there's a line in there at the end. It says, how do I relate to him and make sure I talk about what I know to be true and what he knows to be true. And I think that you can love somebody even if you radically disagree with their lifestyle and what they're doing. You don't need to approve of it, but every time you see them, you don't need to tell them, hey, by the way, I think that's wrong. You don't need to. You do whatever you can to love that person, and maybe your heart isn't mature enough to love that person. Maybe you can't love that person without bitterness, without having resentment. If that's the case,
You in general, you don't sense that.
no,
from this
yeah,
guy.
not you, this
From
person.
this guy, you sense a real tender heart,
Sure.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
I care about this kid, and
Don't you think part of the reason it bothers us is because it's a reflection on us too?
Well, that's what I was saying.
I mean, if this guy he would feel like a failure because this guy failed, and so whether it deflates our not this guy again, but our pride is in our A students, this is representative of why I work so hard, and this is a good kid.
Yeah.
And when a good kid goes bad, people will use that as ammunition against you in the church, saying, "See, the student ministry is blah 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 blah," or the teaching should be this way, or it's all entertainment and it's babysitting, and they're not even really diving into the depths because look at this failure. So I think part of the reason this hurts so bad is because people will use it to hurt you and to attack the student ministry. Now maybe I'm coming a little strong on that from experience,
No,
but I think
yeah.
it's true.
No, they will,
Yeah.
because hurt people are trying to hurt others. So if a parent will now go down a different angle, because I think this is important.
Yeah.
If a parent's kid is screwed up, they're hurting and they don't know what to do. So let's attack the youth ministry.
Exactly.
My son doesn't get enough time.
Yeah.
The teaching's not deep enough. And they'll make their list because they're
Yes.
hurting and they don't want that. My son who's whacked out to be reflection, because we've pretty much done everything right.
That's right.
So it
Parents
must
are
be
perfect.
the, it must be
Yeah.
the church.
And then people who are looking for ammunition just found it. And so I think that's why this part of the reason this hurts so bad is because
Yeah.
they're going to come after you.
And I
Sin
think
sucks.
because sin does suck, but I think because this is an issue that is that the church typically handles so poorly, as far as homosexuality and that all the stuff that's wrapped up in that, I think that this is a huge opportunity to somehow be, to do it right,
I agree.
to handle it right.
And do it right. Go slow. Again, you don't have all the answers, so go slow and be wise
And build on that relationship that you've had for years.
Yeah. Don't throw
because
that.
now you're in a new journey, and it's a
Yeah.
little different than does this kid show up to youth group, and
Yeah.
is he going to camp, and does he bring his friends? We got a whole new journey that
Yeah.
we're on right now with somebody, and be Jesus to this person. we got to end. We're right.
Kind of a heavy podcast.
You have a lot of content.
You
a
know
lot of
what?
good stuff.
It would have been longer, but the intro was 2 minutes. It was a full 2 minutes.
So,
and
goodbye,
I
everybody.
wrote here because
Yeah.
Kevin Massey had us a great question. We're going to start
It's
the
like
next
week
podcast.
2, we've bumped him to.
It's a
Yeah.
good
But
question
he's-
too.
but he's-
But we've
Starting the
answered
next
so
show.
many of his questions.
Kevin's
so-
a good guy.
He's a great guy.
So we're not doing a podcast next week, or we're
Well, I'm going to be in Mexico
He's gonna be in
next
Mexico.
week. She's good. So but we can do it early the next week. So we're about 7-8
Okay.
days away.
not bad. And by the
People are
time this
getting
one gets
caught up
up, it's a
anyway.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Listen to the old
blessings,
ones.
blessings,
Bye-bye.
blessings. Safe
Happy Easter.
travel, Jana, Matt. Go Dodgers.
Go
John.
Dodgers.